Pat lost her husband when his plane went down suddenly. He was survived by a son and daughter. Pat created a series of coping strategies, and her story is an inspiration. Here is Pat in her own words.
I was having problems with my family, and my mom was devastated and falling apart, and she'd been functioning and independent before and leading an active old age, and she just couldn't cope anymore. And so a lot of things were happening. I had a brother who was mentally ill and got much worse, so all of that was, I was trying to cope with that as well, as much as I could. I think that it changes the way you look at life, and makes you very aware of what's important, what's really valuable, which is always, of course, connection with people and family and friends, and makes you more aware of that and anxious. And I think people now see me as someone who's very involved with my family, my kids. I work very hard to do that, even though we're not demonstrative and we don't open up and communicate easily with each other. I really encourage them, and I tried as much as possible, if they were angry at me, to encourage them to tell me what was bothering them and to listen, even though it was very painful to hear sometimes. And I'm glad I was able to do this, because what someone explained to me, that a family is broken apart when one member dies, and if people don't reform their connections with each other and their roles, which all change with the death of that person, then your family may just separate and go their own ways and never be together again as a family. And so I worked very hard. I told my kids that. I said, whatever happens, I'm here for you, and we are here for each other. We need to be open. We need to keep that connection. It's so important right now, because otherwise we're going to go our own ways. We won't be a family. Saying these things, that my kids were going through periods of feeling very angry at me, furious, hurt, abandoned by me, because I was selling the house, moving, and a lot of things were happening in their lives. And initially we had a lot of legal things to sort out, and I took them during the holidays to meetings with lawyers and involved them and discussed, in fact, strategies and issues and problems with them, and totally involved them. Then they went back to work or to college, and I involved them gradually, much less. And that I think was also, looking back, rather unfortunate that I didn't continue involving them. They weren't there, they weren't, present, but it would have been useful, it would have been valuable, I think, to continue talking about the issues with them. That would have kept us closer together. And looking back, that was a mistake that I didn't do that. At the moment, I feel we're all very, very close to each other, which is wonderful, which is what I've worked for through all the years and the different stages, my kids' lives and my life. But I think I remember, at that early stage when I had to suddenly, having left all business dealings and financial dealings to my husband, I had to take those on. I remember it was it's very tricky and hard negotiating.
So the bottom line was, you didn't find the single man that you were attracted to?
No, I didn't. I think there were several who were interested in me, but I think I was at that point, too wary, too anxious, too caught up with really, working my feelings about my husband, really.
Yeah.
My daughter did voice that. She said that she'd be involved with a boy, and then seemed to be a lot of problems. And she realized she was psychic, and she was bicycling back. My kids then had moved out to California, and where they could get very reasonable university education. And I think that because it was very worrying for them, feeling responsible for my emotional welfare in many ways, that it was more comfortable for them distancing themselves. I mean, because when they lived with me, if I came in late, they were worried about me.
Right.
And if they came in late, I couldn't sleep.
Right.
And, they were at an age where they might want to
So
spend...
why get involved with a man and be another person to worry about?
Well, yes. I think it was just that my daughter said, had this sudden image of her partner then being hit. He rode bikes, they both did, being hit by a car in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco, and knocked unconscious and carried to the hospital.
Jeez.
And she got home 20 minutes later. There's a phone call from the emergency room in the downtown hospital in San Francisco saying, Brian's here.
Wow.
So she realized then, thinking about it later, that she was so frightened that she would become involved with someone and that they would also die.
Wow.
And I just thought, poor Rachel. Never occurred to me that's what's
What you were
unconsciously influencing me too. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Ballroom dancing was very life-affirming, rediscovering your family, new friends.
Yes, I made new friends and reconnected with people I'd known. We got much closer. I found most of my friends now are single,
Right.
but I do have couples who are friends. Most of them don't live in the city though. They live somewhere else, so I see them from time to time. And they've been, a few old friends who I'd known for years stayed very supportive and caring and said, you can come here anytime you like, Pat. But they stopped asking me to parties because I think they felt that a widow would be a wet blanket. So that was hard too.
Right.
I did discuss it with them,
Right.
with some of my friends, and one couple said, well, we always entertain in couples. That's what we do. And others said, well, yes, it's possible we might think that way, that's it,
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, But when I went to Europe or abroad, and we had friends there, and I would have a dinner party. I'd book a restaurant and invite them, and then I would arrange with the maitre d' that when I went to the washroom or something, they would give me the check and I would pay for it, because all the men would feel they
Right.
had to pay, and it would be, I didn't want to
Right.
invite people to dinner and have them always pay. And so this is how I handled it, and then they accepted that this was something that, but if, on the other hand, if I were traveling around in England or anywhere else, they would have me stay with them. So it was sort of a way of, repaying, doing something for my friends.
You mentioned the idea about being estranged from couples. All of a sudden, you're not in a couple. What do you
Yeah.
think of the idea of a cruise with widows and widowers? A cruise?
Well, I don't know. That sounds like it might be an idea. But I went on a family cruise, and they had some special activities for singles, and I went, and there was something like 6 women and 1 man turned up. So,
It's either
but they were
on the dance floor in the bereavement group. It's
well,
always,
and I went
the same
dancing,
ratio.
and there were some men, retired men, who danced quite well, who the shipping line hired or paid or had come, and dance, and they told them that they wanted them dancing every evening with all the women, single women, so they would rotate amongst all the single women. So, even that was hard because it wasn't the same balance that I had when I went to my dance classes, where there was at least an almost even number of men and women, but nothing like that on a ship. Sharing and visiting and seeing women friends, and from time to time seeing my friends who are couples, and they now invite me to parties,
Right.
But there was a period when
Yeah.
they did once or twice and then didn't for a long time.
So it
And then
sounds like
started.
you're blessed now. You have a lot of ways of filling up your time that's positive, and like you said, people-to-people interaction and this heart connections.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
there's a lot of good stuff going on right now.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of starting a little bit in a small way to rediscover what I was when I first came here, moved to Brooklyn. And I used to get people together. And one friend told me that I was sort of like the core of our group.
Right.
That, and bringing people together. She saw me as
Right.
doing that, but I really lost that for many years.
I was at one of your parties and it was a good one.